The vehicle that Jessica Haas was in was had very apparent damage to it. I made contact with Jessica Haas. I noticed that she had airbag deployment. Um, I asked her if she was okay. She advised that she had no injuries, but I also noticed that she had slurred speech and glossiness in the eyes. And due to the airbag deployment, I had medics continue to make it on scene to get her medically checked out.
And did you have any suspicions of any particular crime at this initial interaction?
Based on slurred speech and glossiness in the eyes, based on my training, she possibly could have been under any intoxicating substance, but it could also have been from the airbag deployment. I asked her what happened. She told me she was driving south on MLK when she slammed on her brakes. She couldn't remember if she struck a vehicle or not, and she couldn't really give me anything further. Medics took her to the ambulance to get her medically checked out. While I was talking with my partner, I was advised by LFD medics that she admitted that she was drinking. So I went to the ambulance. I spoke with Miss Haas again. I asked her if she drank anything. She admitted that she drank a half a pint of Papa Blue, from what I could remember. Um, yeah.
Let, let me ask you a little more specific questions. Is there a point in time where you directed Ms. Haas to leave her vehicle?
Is that
Is there a time where you directed Ms. Haas to leave her vehicle?
Yeah, when she got out and she got on the stretcher to go into the ambulance to get medically cleared.
Um, at any time did you approach Ms. Haas in while she was in the ambulance?
Yes, I did.
And the first time you approached her, what did you do when you approached her?
When I approached her the first time, I got her statement, then after I got her statement, she couldn't provide anything other. I went to go talk with my partner. Up when I was talking with my partner, LFD admitted or told me that she admitted to drinking. I went back to the ambulance. I asked her if she drunk anything or if she drank anything. She admitted that she drank Papa Blue. I grabbed a believe I grabbed the PBT rights um advice the PBT rights kit or the questionnaire thing or the advice of rights and read her rights. She refused that. At that point, I advised her that she was under arrest because she admitted to drinking while driving. And then I read the chemical test rights to her.
So when you
I
told
did
Ms.
not
Haas she was when
say
you
that
told
against
Ms.
her.
Haas when you told Ms. Haas she was under arrest, where was she at that time?
She was in a neck brace in the back of the ambulance with IVs on her. I advised her that she was under arrest at 4:52 p.m., 16:52 hours the first time.
Did you place her in any restraints?
No, I did not place her in handcuffs due to LFD's policy that if you placed handcuffs on someone while they're in the stretcher, you would have to, there would be an officer that would have to ride in the back of the ambulance. I talked with LFD medics and they advised that she hasn't been combative or anything, so I followed her to Sparrow Hospital.
Is there any time after this um, the initial time you informed Ms. Haas she was under arrest, did you ever inform her of that any other time?
Yes, at 16:55 hours when I read the chemical test rights, in the reading of the chemical test, it says, "I am a peace officer. You are under the arrest of operating while intoxicating liquor, or operating a motor vehicle while intoxicating with the intoxicating liquor."
And did Ms. Haas ever ask you if she could leave?
No, she did not.
Did she ever make any physical movement to leave the situation and go back to her vehicle?
No, I do not recall.
Um, Did you, um, what did you do when the ambulance left with Miss Haas?
I followed LFD. I followed the LFD ambulance to Sparrow Hospital.
And why did you do that?
When I read the chemical test rights, when I read the chemical test rights and asked her if would consent to a blood test, at first she said sure. I asked her for a yes or no answer. She advised that she would consent to a chemical or a blood test. So I followed LFD to Sparrow to fill out the blood test kit and retrieve her blood.
Was Miss Haas free to leave at any time after you told her she was under arrest?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, she was not. She was not free to leave. Once I got the blood test results in the kit, Sparrow medical staff advised that she had a high lactic acid buildup and she was going to be at Sparrow for a very long time. And due to the nature of her being at Sparrow for a long time, and I got clearance for the command, we decided to release her from custody and seek charges on her.
And then again, Miss Haas consented to a chemical test, correct?
Yes.
As a police officer, who how can you approximate how many OWI arrests you've made?
I want to say I've made at least three to five that I can remember.
In your opinion, do you believe Ms. Haas was under arrest?
Yes.
Do you believe a reasonable person would believe they were under arrest in that same situation?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Kristen, do you want to respond to the objection?
Your Honor, I believe I'm asking him his opinion as a police officer.
I think it actually calls for a legal conclusion if a reasonable person would have believed it. However, you could rephrase it to ask him if, I guess, if he believed she heard maybe, but he can't surmise as to a reasonable person's understanding. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
In reviewing the body cam footage, which I understand we haven't seen here yet, did Miss Haas respond to you when you told her she was under arrest?
I believe she said operating, and I informed her, yes, you're under arrest for operating while intoxicating liquor or operating a vehicle clearing or failing to clear an insured distance,
Did you have any
which
other
caused
communication?
What's that, sir?
Did you have any other conversation with her after informing her of her arrest?
Not that I believe so. I do not recall.
At what point was Miss Haas released from police custody?
I would have to look back at the body cam footage, but I believe it would have to be, or my report, but I believe it would have to be several hours after we were at Sparrow. I can't give an
why
exact time or date.
was she? How was she released? Was she just let go?
So after Sparrow informed me that she had some medical problems and it's going to be a while till she was going to be medically cleared. I advised, I went into the room, advised Haas or Miss Haas that, hey, we're going to see charges on you. You're not under arrest. We need you to get medically cleared and get this taken care of.
When you say you're not under arrest, what do you mean by that?
We're releasing her from custody and seeking charges due to her medical problems, and she was going to be at the Sparrow Hospital for a while.
Had you had intentions of doing something differently?
Uh, Based on if she was going to get cleared quicker, I was going to sit with her, and she was going to be in police custody until she got medically cleared, and then take her to the jail, LPD lockup.
Is Yeah, am I understanding you correctly that the only reason she did not go to lockup was because Sparrow Hospital told you she needed to stay?
Objection leading.
The objection, to leading, I agree that the question was suggested the answer. So objection sustained.
What was your intention with Miss Haas? What was your intention to physically move Miss Haas?
Once she was medically cleared, she was going to be in the back of my patrol car. I was going to take her to LPD lockup
And why did you not do that?
because Sparrow informed me that she was going to be there a lot longer than normal for medical clearance based on the buildup of lactic acid. And so I advised her that we were going to seek charges and she was not going to, and she was going to be released of police custody.
No further questions.
Thank you. May I have the Zoom ID in case I need to impeach? I was prepared to impeach you first. Morning, officer.
Officer.
Typically, officer, after you arrest someone, you handcuff them, right?
Yes.
And that deprives their movement, right?
Yes.
And it's also for officer safety, true?
Yes.
Then after a citizen is handcuffed to indicate an arrest, you typically put them into a squad car, right?
Yes.
And then you might even read them their Miranda rights, true?
Yes.
When they're in the squad car, they're locked into the car, correct?
Yes.
They're not able to exit on their own free will.
No.
And then that's typically when you would transport the arrested individual to lockup, as you indicated, true?
Yes.
And as you just testified, none of those things happen in this case, right?
No.
And so you testified that you were dispatched to investigate the accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you parked your vehicle behind Miss Haas's car, true?
Yes, sir.
You didn't block her car in, correct?
No, sir.
And then medical personnel and a fire truck arrived on scene as well, true?
Yes, sir.
And they didn't block her car in either, did they?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Isn't it true that her vehicle sustained significant damage
Yes, sir.
to the point that it was not operable?
What's that, sir?
To the point her vehicle was not operable, true?
I do believe so. So, yes, sir. I do believe so.
Yeah, so it could not be driven away from the scene, right?
No, sir.
When you first approached Ms. Haas, you asked for her driver's license, true?
Yes, sir. I remember. Yes, sir.
And her registration, right?
Yes, sir.
And she was able to give you these things without issue, true?
I would say so. Yes, sir. I may have
And
had a
that-
reminder a couple times.
Okay. At that point, you left Ms. Haas in her vehicle and you walked away from the vehicle, true?
Yes, sir.
And you went to go speak with Officer McClinton, who assisted you, true?
Yes, sir.
And that was about the same time the medical personnel arrived, right?
Yes, sir.
So you left Ms. Haas in the custody of the medical personnel, true?
Yes, sir.
And you established a perimeter to investigate the accident, right?
Yes, sir.
And then eventually you and Officer McClinton returned to her vehicle, true?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, the medical personnel were still talking with Ms. Haas, right?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, it was the medical personnel that were telling her to get out of the vehicle, true?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
And when she was able to get out of the vehicle at the medical personnel's command, they took custody of her, true?
Yes, sir.
they helped her to the stretcher, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't ever have physical custody of her, did you?
Not to my knowledge, I don't recall.
Right.
But
So she
yes, sir.
walked. She walked with the medics. True.
Yes, sir.
You did not have an arm on her. True. Like you didn't have your hand on her.
Not to my knowledge. I can't recall right now. I'd have to look at the body cam footage, but I believe so. Yes, sir. I didn't have a
So that,
arm on her.
so that was a no, right?
Yeah,
No,
no,
you did not.
no, no,
And neither did Officer McClinton. True.
no. Or yes,
And it was
sir.
the medics. And it was the medics that helped her onto the stretcher. True.
Yes, sir.
And they put her into the back of the ambulance, right?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you and Officer McClinton noticed a cup in the center console. True.
Yes, sir.
And that had water in it, right?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, you testified that the medics eventually came up to you and informed you that she had drank, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's when you went into the ambulance, true?
Yes, sir.
And you asked her how much she had to drink, right?
Yes, sir.
You never asked her when she drank, true?
I do not recall. I don't recall. I'd have to look back at the body cam footage.
You drafted an incident report in this matter?
What's that, sir?
Officer, did you draft an incident report in this matter?
Yes, sir.
And you would contain anything relevant in that report, true?
Yes, sir.
And anything relevant or important for the prosecuting official to know?
Yes, sir.
Do you have your incident report in front of you?
My report, my criminal, the report number. Yeah, I have the report in front of me.
You have the case report in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Give me objection, just like. Can you just hold it up to your camera just so we can see it? Your Honor, can the record reflect that he's showing the incident report from this matter?
Okay. So noted.
Can you take a second, Officer Brown, and just review that report?
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm ready, sir.
All right, isn't it true in your report it doesn't say when she had drank the alcohol?
Yeah, she did not. No, she didn't tell me when she did.
Isn't it true you never asked?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't know about the relevance of this. We're not fighting over the probable cause of arrest. We're fighting about whether she was under arrest at the time of the consent, implied consent. release.
I can move on, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So in the back of the ambulance, you testified you never handcuffed Miss Haas,
That is correct.
and you never handcuffed her before that either, true?
That is correct.
You never handcuffed her to the stretcher?
That is correct.
When you informed her that she was under arrest, you didn't handcuff her after that, true?
That is correct.
And you didn't provide her with her Miranda rights, true?
I had no further questions for her regarding the
You
case.
left, and then you left the ambulance, right?
Yes, sir.
You left her in the physical custody of the medics.
Yes, sir.
Then you returned several minutes later, true? Approximately.
Yes, sir.
And you read her the DI 177 form, true?
The chemical test rights form. Yes, sir.
Right. And that was the second time you testified that you had indicated that she was under arrest, true?
Yes, sir.
That's part of the rights, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And she still wasn't handcuffed, true?
That's correct.
Did Miss Haas appear confused when you read her rights?
Do not recall.
Isn't it true she denied driving?
Say that again, sir.
Isn't it true that she denied driving?
I do not recall.
Isn't it true that the form you read to her contains the penalties for a refusal of the test?
Yes, sir. The chemical test rights form.
Correct. Isn't it true that those penalties include a suspended license for 1 year?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that it would come with the addition of 6 points to their driver's license?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that those penalties are fairly serious to someone's driving record?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that you read her those rights while she was in the back of the ambulance?
Yes, sir.
She was still in the custody of the medics, true?
Well, I advised her she was under arrest, so she would be in our custody at that point.
As you testified earlier, you never had physical custody over Ms. Haas, true?
Until I advised her that she was under arrest. Once she's under arrest, she's in our custody.
Did you take physical control over Ms. Haas?
Even though she was in the ambulance with IVs in her, if she's not in handcuffs, she's still under arrest. She's still in our custody if we advise her she's under arrest.
So that's a no then, right, officer?
And not place handcuffs on her. That's correct.
Right, and you never had physical control over her, true?
Please, so I guess so. Yes, sir.
Yes, you did not have physical control over Ms. Haas?
I do not recall. I'm confused on the situation. I'm confused on the question, sir.
So I asked you, you never had physical custody over Ms. Haas, true?
Sure.
But she was always being worked on by the medics, right?
That's correct.
You personally never deprived her freedom of movement, true?
That is correct.
And after the hospital departed, you followed her there, true?
Yes, sir.
You followed in your vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
You were not in the ambulance, true?
Not.
To your knowledge, no other police officer was in the ambulance, right?
No, sir.
And you went there to get the blood draw done, true?
Yes, sir.
And an officer met you there with a blood kit, if you recall.
Yes, sir.
Because you didn't have one in your vehicle, right?
No, I did not have one.
Isn't it true that you could have gone to the station to get one?
That's true.
And isn't it true that you, in that time, you also could have requested a search warrant,
Yes, sir.
but you did not, true?
Yes. Yes, sir. She consented.
I didn't hear what he said. That's true. What?
She consented.
Oh,
He consented.
Once the blood draw was completed at the hospital, you left, true?
Yes, sir. Sparrow Hospital.
And when it was over, you left the hospital, true?
Yes, sir.
You left Ms. Haas in the custody of her medics
Yes, sir.
and her doctors.
Yes, sir.
Did you handcuff her to the gurney at the hospital?
No, sir.
Did you position an officer outside of the door?
No, sir. We did not have the staffing at that time.
Did you go back to the hospital to check on her status a few hours later?
I do not recall.
Did you call the hospital to check on her status?
No, I did not.
Did you go there the next day to see if she was still there?
No, I did not, because we advised her that we were seeking charges. So instead of
But she
her
was-
being in our custody anymore, we were going to seek charges, and it was going to get sent to the prosecutor.
After you left there, so your testimony today here, Officer Brown, is that you placed Ms. Haas under arrest on November 30th, 2023.
Yes, sir.
And after you left the hospital, you filled out a warrant request and disposition form, true?
To seek charges?
I believe it's a warrant
The-
request and disposition form.
A search warrant or warrant request? I'm confused.
A warrant request and disposition form.
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Yes, so you filled one of those out, true?
Yes, sir.
And on that warrant request and disposition form, there's different sections, true?
Yes, sir.
There's one for a criminal history.
Yes, sir.
There's one for a local record.
Yes, sir.
There's one for a lien.
Yes, sir.
And there's a little section for a confession if the defendant confessed.
Yes, sir.
And there's also a section for defendant status, true?
Yes, sir.
And on the form you authored, under defendant status, isn't it true that you put not arrested?
Yes, sir.
That's because Ms. Haas was not arrested on that date, true?
Because I released her from custody.
You never handcuffed her, right?
That's correct, sir.
You never had physical control over her, right?
That is correct, sir.
You never deprived her freedom of movement, right?
That is correct.
I have no further questions.
Just briefly,
Read, yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Redirect.
Yes. Officer, do you remember Officer McClinton approaching Ms. Haas's vehicle prior to her exiting the vehicle?
I do not recall.
Do you know if Officer McClinton asked Ms. Haas to exit her vehicle?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
You asked if he remembered Officer McClinton asking.
Does he know if Officer McClinton asked her to exit?
I do not know,
Okay,
sir.
there's an objection. So if there's an objection, you can't give an answer until I tell you if you can give the answer or not.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to respond to the hearsay objection?
I'm not asking what Officer McClinton said. I'm simply asking if he heard Officer McClinton say something to her.
Well, you're asking specifically if he heard Officer McClinton ask her to exit the vehicle. Is it being offered for the truth of the matter asserted?
It is, Your Honor. I'll rephrase the question.
Okay, objection sustained.
Officer, are you contending that Ms. Haas was under arrest prior to her being in the ambulance?
Prior to being in the ambulance, no, she was not under arrest prior to being in the ambulance.
So when she got on the stretcher, was she under arrest?
No,
When she first got into the ambulance, was she under arrest?
no,
And you conducted an investigation, correct?
yes.
And when did you inform Ms. Haas she was under arrest?
At 16:52 hours, when she admitted that she was drinking while driving.
Did Ms. Haas have freedom to walk out of the ambulance?
No,
Why did you follow the ambulance?
because she was in our custody. Even though she was with the ambulance in the stretcher with IVs attached to her. LFD's policy is if we handcuff her, we would have to ride in the ambulance with her. She wasn't combative. I talked to LFD medics. They advised, yeah, you can follow us to Sparrow. That's what I did.
And Mr. Noble asked you if you left the hospital after the chemical test. What prompted you to leave the hospital?
Sparrow medical staff advised that she was going to be at Sparrow for a very long time due to her lactic acid buildup. We didn't have the staffing at the time to have an officer sit with the accused. So I cleared it with a command sergeant and decided to release her from custody and seek charges.
And nothing further, Your Honor.
Nothing further from this witness, because I think Mr. Rondell asked my only question, which was whether or not Ms. Haas would have been free to leave the ambulance once she was advised she was under arrest. Any other witnesses?
None, Your Honor.
Witnesses or evidence? Is there evidence going to be? Someone dropped off something to the court. I wasn't following what was going on here. That's judge's copies.
I believe our office dropped those off as exhibits to the reply.
Okay, this is video evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.
I did not obviously open and play this because I thought maybe it would be played today. This is supposed to be body worn camera.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you intend to have me review that in court today?
No, Your Honor, I think the intention was for Your Honor to review it as part of our response, but I
Okay.
do not feel that that's necessary to play today.
Sounds
Part
good.
of this hearing.
So it's just two copies. I guess one is for the file. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Officer Brown. You're all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You can make your arguments.
Your Honor, I very briefly, kind of how my objection went, as Mr. Noble was arguing. We're not arguing whether or not she was probable cause for arrest, whether she was under arrest. Ms. Haas was not under arrest when she was asked to get into the ambulance. She was not under arrest when she got out of the car, but she was informed she was under arrest when the investigation was completed and the officers made an informed decision to place her under arrest. The reason she was not in handcuffs was because, as officer testified, it is Lansing Fire Department policy that a patient would not be in handcuffs unless a police officer were riding in the vehicle with her. That's why the officer followed the ambulance. Just as stated in our brief, there's a relevant inquiry, and that should be, does a reasonable person believe in this suspect's position that they had the freedom to leave the situation? And that's Berkner versus McCarty. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case. Your Honor, I don't believe that any reasonable person would believe that they had the ability to walk away and leave and was not under police custody. As she was in the back of an ambulance, she was informed twice by a police officer that she was under arrest. This after the officer responding to an accident in which he noted that she had slurred speech and glossy eyes. She admitted to him that she was drinking. She asked Ms. Haas if she would take a PBT test. And then after informing her that she was under arrest, read her the implied consent form, which she consented to a test. So I do not believe that a reasonable person will believe that they were not under arrest, that they had the ability to walk away and leave. And the officer also testified that he only left the hospital. He had the intention of taking her to lockup after leaving the hospital. And the only reason he did not, because the hospital informed her that due to her physical condition, she was going to be there longer than normal. So at this time, I think the fact that Officer Brown later sought charges does not negate the fact that she was under arrest at that time when she was in the road in the ambulance. And so for those reasons, Your Honor, I'd ask you to deny defendant's motion to suppress.
Mr. Noble.
Thank you, Your Honor. As part of that same quote, Berkmer v. McCarty that the people cite to, or the city cites to in their brief, says a policeman's unarticulated plan has no bearing on the question whether a suspect is in custody. Accordingly, the officer's intention to take her from the hospital to the station really has no bearing on this court's analysis. His intention isn't relevant. It's whether or not he deprived her freedom of movement in a way that would render her formally arrested. Things such as handcuffing her, whether or not that's behind her back, in front of her person, or to the stretcher. Officer Brown testified he never did that. He never had physical control over the defendant. He never deprived her freedom of movement. Ms. Haas was.
So let me stop you there, because he didn't handcuff her, is why? That's what your position is?
He never ever had physical control over Ms. Haas,
Can
even
you
without.
explain why? Doesn't have to, officers don't have to handcuff you, that's at their discretion, based on safety concerns. They never have to, unless their policy unequivocally states they need to, they can make a determination as to when an arrest is warrants handcuffing. In this particular case, he was very clear that it was due to the fact that an officer would have to ride in the ambulance with her if he handcuffed her. So he made an informed decision. So it's semantics now, if he took physical custody. No, he didn't have hands on her. She was in the custody of LFD and he followed her to the hospital. Why is that not considered custody?
Because as the court just indicated, she was in the care, control, and custody of the medical personnel.
So you think Lansing Police just goes around following ambulances to hospitals in their spare time?
I cannot speculate as to what the Lansing Police Department
What,
does.
so if officer is following behind an ambulance with someone that they said that they told at least twice that they're under arrest, you don't think a reasonable person would believe that they were under arrest?
I'm not sure, Your Honor. I know what the facts of this case show.
Okay. You can continue your argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. When we cite to People v. Borchard-Ruland, the Michigan Supreme Court case makes it very clear for the implied consent statute to be applicable, someone has to be arrested. Without the arrest, which we argue did not occur here, because she was always in the care and control of the medics, getting medical attention. She was never formally arrested when she was read her implied consent rights. Those consent rights are not applicable to Ms. Haas's situation. Because of that, the implied consent statute does not apply, and her consent has to be analyzed under the Fourth Amendment, voluntary and knowingly consenting to a search, in this case being her blood. Ms. Haas could not have done that because she was threatened with the penalties of driver's license sanctions that were not applicable to her situation. She was told a refusal, which every citizen has the right to refuse to search without a warrant if the implied consent statute is not applicable. She was told that her driver's license would be suspended for her refusal and that 6 points would be added to her license if she refused. That was not true because the implied consent statute did not apply to her situation. Respectfully, Judge, we would ask you to grant the motion for these reasons because one, she was never formally arrested or taken into custody physically. And two, the implied consent statute did not apply and her consent to the search was not knowingly or voluntarily made. Thank you.
Thank you. I disagree for multiple reasons. The officer testified, and there's been nothing to rebut that he told her on 2 occasions after she had been placed in the ambulance, after she had supposedly told the ambulance or LFD that she were admitted to drinking, that he spoke to her, she admitted to him that she was drinking. He said he told her on 2 occasions and gave specific times that he told her you were under arrest. I don't think that a reasonable person would misunderstand that if an officer told you that you were under arrest. She's in an ambulance and he's advised her, then he says, of her chemical rights. And he states that when he read them, they state in the rights that I am an officer and you are under arrest. It's pretty plain language there. So that's even an additional time that she's advised that she's under arrest. He's having a conversation with LFD that he, based on their policy, that he won't handcuff her. He will follow the ambulance to the hospital. Officers are not following ambulances with people or suspects in it after they've already told them they're under arrest to make sure LFD gets to the hospital safely. They're following because they are taking custody of that individual, and custody does not always mean that they have to physically place their hands on them, because it could require medical clearance before they could do that. That happens in many occasions. It could be a situation where the officer is responding and the suspect is under arrest, but they were just shocked or they were in an accident. A number of reasons could require an officer not to physically handcuff you or put their hands on you, although you are advised that you're not free to leave. When an officer says you're under arrest, that's what it means. You're not free to leave. And so I don't believe that a reasonable person, I can't say if your client understood that, but I believe if a reasonable person would have understood that they were now under arrest And therefore your motion to suppress is denied. Did I have an order at all on this?
No, Your Honor, we could submit one.
Okay, and this is already scheduled for a pretrial, or do we need to schedule for one?
I believe we need to schedule one. I'm not sure if we have a
I
second.
don't think we know.
Yeah.
Let's get a pretrial date. And is the city gonna be requiring her to have a assessment? I think that was, we scheduled that out in August for that purpose, so I'm assuming an assessment was done?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so then we just need that, the next available date. February 25th at 9:30. February 25th at 9:30 work for you?
I think I have a hearing, evidentiary hearing that day, Your Honor.
Okay, so we can get you another
Let me double-
another time or
Let me
another
double
date?
check that, but I'm fairly confident. The hearing's at 2 p.m., Your Honor, so I can make that.
No,
I apologize.
no problem. And of course you can appear via Zoom for that.
And that was 9:30.
Yes.
And we'll submit an order under the 7-day rule, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any additional matters for the record today?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Your
Thank
Honor.
you. You're all set.
Right here, wait, didn't I?
So you-
Yeah, yes, I called.
Order a copy of that transcript.
Very nice.
Would you like me to send you?
You can send it.
Thank you.
There's two. That's one with substantial progress. She did the whole thing.
Um, Can't do impaired.
Oh, we'll talk about that. We'll be in touch.
All right.
before
That's a local one.
Yeah, you originally also
Thank you
want
very
one
much.
with progress.
For-
Stay warm.
Thank you.
Have a good one, Dan.
Drive safe.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah. It's still my way.
Mr. Kelly, I haven't seen her. I think he's or only on the morning person.
Did we ever hear from?
No, I got his voice being strange and saying.
By the time we get that done, you know, continue.
Yeah. Do I believe the afternoon? I was working for yesterday and I could say conference room again. Jesse. Sounds like he wants five. Five. That's not really five, so five of those.
Great.
Yes. That's correct. Yeah. He disagrees with the way the officer phrased. Something else told the other can't be sure if he did so. Not that it's that.
You know,
So,
they're
fact check.
contest.
I don't think he is. Yeah, I haven't met him on the phone yet. I've left him on a voicemail. You haven't seen him since he was 6 years. So I'm gonna go back to him sometime. About this and for- Oh, yay.
This is just
It's good day. Good day.
a long day.
Yeah. Christina Elena, I left the voicemail for. Oh. Jerome Holmbox. I called the number we have on file. It was his dad who didn't answer, but I saw a different attorney. I saw a note from a different attorney from a few days ago. That said they called that. The issue with your offer and dad is that he is on PR bond here, so your offer was time served. I was like, it's for a few people. I think it was Mr. One from Mr. Britt as well. Offer was time served. He has some time to respond.
Whenever they get, whenever the report reads.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. And all the stuff I do, especially in these cases, because court can secure- There's present hearing. So when the rain was multiple forms of totals a few hours and everyone gets a PR. Most of that kid went on attached to it. No one ever goes to trust. So, like $100 PR release. Let me see. Is judge off the bench after the morning, she not coming back?
Yes,
Oh,
I'll just give you another date.
okay, for Miss Smith.
Done for the morning.
Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, I'll put my- Oh. Please, yes, if there's any way possible, but earlier or more for her, better, but.
She said what?
For Miss Smith, for resetting her hearing, she's asking if there's any way possible she can do something earlier in the morning.
I said it for 9:30.
Love it, thank you. Very much.
Does she have another one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow. Did you say tomorrow?
In an hour.
Oh.
I would have rather
Yeah,
go to these
me too.
tomorrow.
Unfortunately, Mr. Martinez was chewing quite strong gum yesterday, so I had to go home, take one rescue meds, had a really nasty allergic reaction. Passed down this morning, just chewing gum.
knew
That's
it.
what because I heard you. You
Oh, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
My face is on fire. My vision's really blurry. and I'm
Yeah.
having a hard time.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, when he was standing in front of me, I'm like, yeah,
was
that's what
fine.
it is.
and it's normally fine, but I have a severe allergy. So
Yeah.
I'm struggling now. And I talked to Cornish about sending somebody else, but I know he was pretty Oregon State. Won't send me. So much love to go home and take my meds. I'm not going to. So I'll be back in an hour.
Okay.
All right, be safe. Girl, I had to stand up. I stood up because I didn't know what that lady, the Jessica Hotz. Did you see her? She was looking at Judge. Girl, yeah, she was like, first she stared off his face for like a long time. And then when Judge said she found, it in favor of the city, she was like, I'm like, oh yeah, let me stand up. just in case she wants to pull it.
She looks slow anyway. So that wasn't nice anyway.
Jesus. And then this one, she calls, it says, what she was, that, she thought it was for 11:30. Even if you did think it was for 11:30, you were still late.
Right. And why did she come? She got this for a time. Why she didn't come? She didn't have to come in person.
I'm surprised. She said Miss Sutter called. She called me. Well, Miss Sutter said she called it.
Miss Sutter says she called what?
Yeah, Miss Sutter said that she had called her and told her that she thought it was for 11:30. If that was the case, she should have zoomed in right then and there if she called, you know what I'm saying? At 11 o'clock. That's my personal opinion.
Oh, shoot.